The Indian Railways has devised a strategy to make journeys more comfortable for passengers who are traveling in unreserved coaches. To discuss this and a lot more, merely in terms of the implementation, how this policy will be implemented on ground, we have with us today Mr. Shanti Narayan. He's a former member of the Railway Board. Welcome to the show, sir. So the first question, Mr. Narayan, would be that in terms of implementation, how will the railways go ahead and implement this strategy?
This strategy has been discussed threadbare with the general managers, and they have been given these instructions. And I'm sure that the general managers will not allow this initiative to be, to the best of their abilities, they will try to implement it. The strategy is to have these drinking water supply meals provided at the two ends of the platform where these unreserved coaches are normally located. And to that extent, the facilities of putting in additional vendors, drinking water, booths, that is possible and will be done, I'm sure, in the days to come. But it ultimately is a palliative, because the demand and supply equation is not in equilibrium. That equilibrium has to be established by creating additional supply to meet the demand. That is the challenge.
How can the railways address this challenge, sir? This is, as you were saying, overcrowding and sheer footfall is a challenge. So how do you address this challenge?
The only way is to increase the number of trains and number of coaches on various trains on the different routes. For instance, there is a huge movement between Bihar and Bombay, Mumbai, between Bihar and Chennai, Bangalore. So on all these routes, the only way to take care of this numbers is to increase the number of trains and introduce some fully unreserved trains as well. The plan that the Indian Railways is working on is that as soon as the capacity becomes available, there is a lot of work going on in the infrastructure sector where we are going in for these dedicated freight corridors. Now, once those corridors come up, the freight trains moving on the network, they will be diverted to these dedicated freight corridors and release capacity for running more passenger services. And the second strategy that they are working on is also to increase the average speeds of trains on these sections, so that at on the same capacity, more number of trains can run. So this is the overall long-term strategy. The two corridors, dedicated freight corridors, the western corridor between Mumbai and Delhi, and the eastern corridor from Howrah towards Ludhiana. These two corridors are under construction, and in phases these are being opened. But what you have talked of about the provision of drinking water supply at the ends of platform, trying to provide more cleanliness in the coaches, the food service is to be improved. These are palliatives, and these will be done. Indian Railways has that capacity to bring these changes, but it will be basically, I don't see a solution to the real problem.
So, in terms of, sir, as you were talking about the mere footfall, if you have to make sure that the cleanliness and other amenities are in place, so there has to be a check on the numbers. So how do you keep a check on the numbers? Suppose a coach is meant for 70 or 80 odd people, and then how do you ensure that that capacity remains, and not, as you have mentioned, it doubles, or it far exceeds the capacity.
You see, we have tried to ensure that we do not allow more than that carrying capacity of the coach. But the numbers are so large, and they all want to travel. And
Right.
they want to travel because the cost of travel is much more competitive, and
Mhm.
it's faster overall. So that's the demand side is far outstrips the supply. And
Mhm.
the only way is to increase the supply. And
Right.
for that, it cannot be done in a short term. It will
Mhm.
have to be on a long-term strategy, which is already in place by dedicated freight corridors coming up. We can run nearly 100 trains each way on the dedicated freight corridors. So whatever freight trains which are running on the normal network today, some of those trains will be diverted to the dedicated freight corridors and release capacity on the routes for running more passenger services. The second strategy that they are trying to do is by increasing the speeds of trains, passenger trains, some more number of trains can be introduced on those routes. And the
Mhm.
attempt will be, depending on the demand pattern, they will introduce fully unreserved trains on some of these routes. So
So,
that's,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. So currently, sir, there are two coaches which are primarily dedicated for the unreserved, passengers. Do you think, increasing these coaches from, say, 2 to 4 can be a, short-term or medium-term solution?
It is being attempted, it is being tried out, but they are trying to bring in more unreserved coaches on the slower long distance trains rather than the most popular trains, because for the reserved accommodation requirement is also huge. And by cutting out some of the reserved coaches on these trains will be counterproductive.
So, in terms of mere implementation, do you see any? Can you foresee any hindrances?
Yes, the number itself, because I have traveled on these unreserved coaches. People are sitting in the corridors, on the
Right.
doors,
On the
in
doors,
the,
yeah.
yeah, on the doors, in the toilet area,
Even the
everywhere.
aisle, even the aisle, yeah.
Yeah. So the
Yeah.
problem is, how does a person who wants to service these passengers
Mm-hmm.
access them? He is
Mm-hmm.
not able to move on doors. So the right solution is trying to provide the food from outside,
Mm.
from through the windows,
Right.
which is why they are trying to have these vendors to
Right.
be available right outside these coaches at the platforms, and
Right.
drinking water supply also to be increased. So that's the short-term challenge that they are trying to cope with.
Right. So, instructions have been given to the general managers of all the zonal railways to make sure that these amenities are met. So, do you think, sir, they, by more segregating such responsibilities, it can be a good way forward?
Yes, I think this is one of the palliatives. And instructions have been given, and the general managers, I'm sure, will try their best to ensure that those instructions get followed. Because we have
Okay.
no dearth of vendors. We
Right.
can certainly put the additional vendors at the time of these trains,
Mm-hmm.
at the location where these coaches would be uh, standing at the platform.
Right. So, the very aspect of cleanliness, how do you ensure cleanliness when the footfall is almost the double?
The cleanliness part is only in respect of the toilets. Those toilets, we can ensure that they are attended to at major stations. Those get cleaned at that time, and during those
So,
stoppages.
so the your screen, I think, it's not steady. Can you please put it Yeah. Now it's fine. It's actually when you're talking, the screen is, it's moving up and down. Yeah, now it's
Okay.
okay, sir. Fine. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
So that is the way they are looking at the cleanliness part, because there's literally no space to even do the cleaning.
Right.
The whole thing is absolutely full,
Hmm.
and there's no walking space at all available. So
Right.
the real solution is an additional number of coaches, more trains. That is the solution. And what I believe is being tried out is that, take the instance of the Delhi Bombay route.
Right.
They cannot provide the additional unreserved coaches on the
Hmm.
faster trains like the Deluxe Express or the
Hmm.
Frontier Mail. But
Hmm.
there are other, Dehradun Express, for instance.
Hmm.
They are trying to put additional coaches on those Dehradun.
So, in
Uh,
terms of, if we were to understand in terms of mere operational, operational challenges, if you were to say, in terms of the superfast trains, what are the challenges of putting additional coaches in terms of superfast trains?
there is a limitation of traction capacity,
Right.
which uh, and there is a limitation of the length of the platform at stopping stations. So initially they could accommodate only 16 coaches. Then that number was
16,
raised
1/6, right?
1/6.
Okay.
Then the platforms were extended by making it available for 20 coaches.
Okay.
Now they have extended them to 26 coaches. Now,
Okay.
beyond 26, it's not possible.
Okay. So what you're
And
saying is
therefore,
yeah. So what you're saying is, one is the length of the platform, and what is the second point that you have raised, sir?
the traction capacity of the locomotive.
Traction capacity. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Traction capacity. So these are the two main challenges.
Yeah.
Okay. So also there's this proposal that if people are traveling in a particular route, if they have unreserved, on an unreserved coach, and if they have tickets, so they can actually go on to and avail any of the trains which are taking that route. So how is
Yeah.
that? How is that? Is it a solution?
No, it is already happening. This is already happening because people who are not able to enter those jam-packed coaches in the
Right.
superfast trains,
Mm-hmm.
they have no option but to go by the slower trains. So that is in any case being used. The only point that we are trying to suggest is that we will add more coaches on the less popular long distance trains, and
Mm-hmm.
people who want to travel
Mm-hmm.
will have to accept a longer travel time.
Longer travel time. Okay. Okay. So, as somebody who has been on the ground, sir, what would you say in terms of mere solutions which are really workable and feasible in terms of both operational and both financial? What are those solutions that you would provide?
No, the financial part is not an issue because we are not looking at raising the fares. Raising the fares is not an option because we are not giving them the facilities that one would expect
Right.
on a reserved coach. And in fact, we are very, very uh, ashamed of the way we are carrying these unreserved people.
Hmm.
It's a shame that the way they are actually traveling.
Right.
It's absolutely
And
scandalous.
it's also dangerous, sir. It's also very dangerous.
Dangerous is normally not there on the long distance trains, but
Mhm.
it's a very, very uncomfortable journey for them.
Mhm.
And it's a harassment throughout the journey. I mean, their journey time would be about 15, 16 hours at least.
Right.
And going through that hell in those coaches for 16 hours. I mean, we as managers of the Indian Railways feel ashamed about it. And that is why we are trying to see what we can do.
Mhm.
Uh, but the real solution is only more coaches, more trains. And my third effort when I was there was to introduce these double seater coaches, where the seating capacity could be increased from 80 to about 120.
So, but that would also shrink the space, right?
No, it is 2 decks, just like a double decker.
Okay.
So it's a double decker coach, but that is itself has its own problems. If it is a air conditioned double decker, then it is okay. But in a non-AC double decker coach, it is the travel conditions are not very
conducive.
Good. And a lot of dust comes into the coaches from the station platforms, because the lower deck is almost at the platform level.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir, for putting these things in perspective. What you're saying that the new strategy that has been devised by the railway board is more of a palliative, and the railways, they need to look at a long-term solution in terms of additional coaches, in terms of more trains.
Yeah, that is also part of the policy at the moment, and it's not that they are not planning for it. They have these dedicated freight corridors. 2 are likely to be commissioned fully by next year, and they are planning 3 more dedicated freight corridors, which means a quantum jump in the capacity available for running of passenger trains. So the strategy is there, the plan is there, but it takes time.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.